because I worked at McDonald's on Old Kent Road, and Old Kent Road McDonald's was, we had two set of different people, Jamaicans and Nigerians. Every Nigerian that come into the UK then in South London, that's an easy place to get a job. And for me, as soon as I got a call from Uncle Sam that Sam, come and start tomorrow, I was so glad because coming from Nigeria where I never had a job, there was no need for me to go work. Because for me, I always say this, that I've got 3 Ys. Which one is fate, the second is tribe, the third one is legacy.
We have to go for a nice alliteration, from McDonald's to multi-million-pound property deals.
I know you're gonna say that.
You knew I was gonna say, because you tell me, because I think, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Property by Kazy Podcast. Every week we have a special guest, and this week is like no other. We have got the amazing Sammi. How you doing?
Very well, bro. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm glad I've got you on. Before you've dragged me down to Dartford, us South Londoners don't really like to leave South London. And that doesn't technically count.
That's cool. You dragged me down to your place.
Exactly. So we've had a trade-off. He's come down and seen me. So I think, as a tagline, because there's always a tagline to everything, right? So for you, I was thinking, and from our conversation, sort of what you've achieved, and in terms of starting points, your best tagline is we have to go for a nice alliteration, from McDonald's to multi-million-pound property deals.
Hold on, before we get into the rest of the podcast, a quick note from our sponsors, London Mortgage Solutions, our tried, tested and recommended property finance brokerage. Whether you're looking for bridging finance, buy-to-let mortgages or commercial mortgages, these guys have got it all covered and will give you great advice. They can also arrange both residential and life insurance. They've helped myself as well as many of my listeners already. So if you want to find out how they can help you, click the link in the description below.
I know you're going to say that.
You knew I was going to say, because you tell me, because I think for a lot of people that are in all different points of their journey, and not that McDonald's is the starting point of everybody's journey, but it's something that, achieving great things a lot of the time can seem unobtainable.
That's correct.
But knowing that there was a starting point that was potentially where you are, or even in a lesser paid job, can show people that it is possible. Now there's loads of steps to take you there.
That's right.
But your journey has been encompassing to say that really is possible.
That's correct.
So you are the CEO of Rehoboth Property. Or Rehoboth, just put Rehoboth.
That's right, you've done well with that.
I've done this. That pronunciation is a tongue twister, but I've perfected it over my time around Sammi, and I'm a Rehoboth expert. So if anybody needs the enunciations, I'm here.
Okay, well done, you've done well with that, that's it.
Yeah, so CEO, now obviously you guys have different elements of your business.
That's correct.
And one of the first time I really saw about you, I think it was one of the social pages that posted something that you were doing, and it was the project you had in Dartford where you now work out of, which is the co-working, soon to become co-living space. That was the development of a previous court with the jail cells below that's now been transformed into a place where people can grow their businesses.
That's right.
And I think we've got a full video where we spoke through that, and you can go back and you can check out the previous video. I'll make sure that we get the link in the description below so you can check that out. But it's amazing. It's the idea that, somewhere that potentially previously was the end of somebody's journey or the end of their career path because it went downhill from there is now the same point where they can pivot and elevate into something amazing. And you've got the small cells where people can work out as smaller units. You've even got the individual hot desks, and then you've got the larger rooms for businesses. I know you also brought in some local caterers that now also run the business within the cafe that services the business as well as the general public as well.
So, fun enough, I'm surprised you remember them. They've gone on now to set up a new business as well in-house.
Nice. Yeah. And that's the thing that I really liked about the idea of the space is that the opportunity to grow.
That's correct.
And being surrounded by people that, you might be hot desking and being a one-man band in whatever it is your specific niche or vocation is.
That's right.
But the fact that you're surrounded by businesses that are growing, the opportunity to potentially be part of some of the systems that you have in place where you can help, like sort of an elevator system where you can help people grow and accelerate their businesses as a business accelerator. I think is really good. So I like that has been set up, but that's not really the core of your business, is it?
That's right. That for us was more of a legacy project, because for me, I always say this, that I've got 3 Ys. Which one is faith? The second is tribe. The third one is legacy. Whatever you do in life, the most is something about your legacy. We can build so many buildings as developers, but what would people remember you for after you're gone? So for us, that space became our legacy, where businesses can thrive, an ecosystem of different businesses. Like you rightly said, something negative then turn into something positive, where people can build a new economy, build new things, and build their dreams again. So yeah, that's pretty much one of our legacy projects.
No, I'm excited. Like I said, I was excited to come down and see it. Even had the barbers in there. I wasn't able to get a haircut, but now that I'm back in the flesh, hopefully I'm gonna come down and get a nice little skin fade. So I'll be down for that. But yeah, definitely check out that video. But away from that, you guys have worked on some amazing projects. You spoke off camera about some of the stuff you've got in the pipeline. But away from the stuff you're gonna be doing in the future, what have you worked on over the last couple of years?
I think from the start of the journey for me, I've been involved in the faith community, helping them sourcing buildings. We're the first firm to turn a court building into a place of worship. We were able to turn Bow County Court, Woolwich County Court, even bingo buildings into community space for churches and all that. And even 133 Rye Lane that is currently this is a building in Peckham. I sold that building about 10 years ago. So we've been involved in a lot of commercial development around London and Kent.
Okay, so an element with the churches, and then also the commercial developments.
That's correct.
And you're branching now a lot more into residential as well.
So our start with our journey was we saw a need. I was able to identify a big need within a faith community where faith group were looking for buildings where they could use. And what you have was the pastors didn't understand what they needed to do. So I was able to bring in a solution of finding finance and also saying that I can find those buildings for them. And we then became so creative with finding spaces. One thing people don't understand about the name Rehoboth. Rehoboth means spaces. And it's a biblical name, but in the sense of creating spaces. So what we do is we find spaces, we create spaces, creating spaces as solution as a brand.
So if we go back to you saying that early on, that was your conception, that was your idea that you built the property around. What was the first deal that you did? Like, what was the first building that you sourced, and how did you get that deal across the line? Like, how did you get to the point where you could do that deal?
So it's interesting, the question you just asked me. That took me back to memory lane. There've been a lot of smaller deals that I was involved in, but I think the one that kind of changed a lot for me was 133 Rye Lane, where I was able to sell. I literally had that deal. I was new to the market. I was in residential already. I was in a lot of residential deals before moving into commercial. And I saw this building and I said to the owner, then I said, I would sell this building for you. He then had Fox things and some other agency that was going to instruct. But I said, trust me, there was something that really worked well for me was he kind of saw my determination that I knew I would sell this. Because Peckham was going through a massive gentrification. If you know what has happened in Peckham now, it's gone through a massive gentrification and there's a lot of opportunity with new developers coming into Peckham. And as soon as I saw that building, I knew that this is going to be that iconic building I must get myself into. And I got the instruction and I was able to sell that building. So it's called Market in Peckham. It's a co-working restaurant. It's a very, very, very beautiful concept in Peckham.
Okay, so that was like that first deal.
Major deal. Because I had
deal.
all the smaller deals, which were like £500,000, £1 million, but that was the turning point for me.
And so when you were, how did the business work when you were doing the £500,000 deals or the what you call smaller deals? So
the smaller deals were more around faith group that were looking for spaces to lease as well. So I was able to, it's similar to probably what a terminology would say, deal packaging, where I was able to find those spaces for them.
So it was acting as like a buying agent and still
a sourcing agent. That's it. So sourcing and buying agent, that was right.
Okay.
So I was able to source that and lease the building to them, and they pay me 10% for leasing the building. So from there, we're able to go from buying agent, from sourcing agent into them buying. Then we'll move into development, into investment, and into consultancy.
Because one thing I think is interesting and a common denominator the lines of a lot of people's journeys is that, it's obvious, but you don't start at the top, and you start with something that gives you access to the people that you want to build relationships and credibility with going forward.
That's correct.
Because even if, you take it out of your specific niche, as somebody who sources properties, whether it's you're sourcing buy-to-let properties, you're sourcing deals for somebody, those people that are buying those deals have that available capital.
That's right.
At a point in which you prove yourself to them, i.e. you can source good deals, you are reliable, you do deliver, you do operate with integrity. When now maybe you want to raise funding or you want to build further relationships, you're coming from a place of, we have an ongoing relationship, and you've also made yourself an integral part of their own team.
That's right.
And I think that is something, a common theme that, if you have an idea that you want to get into, buying HMOs, potentially starting to manage HMOs is a good place to build relationships with those people that are already buying HMOs.
That's
to
correct.
Potentially partner with.
I do agree with that. Relationship that's the magic. That's the key thing. Like I said to you about the start of a business, it was growing the relationship within the faith community. And these people saw that Sammi can deliver to us. From that relationship, we were able to even get some of this faith group to even invest in us as a business because they were able to see the track record and they were part of our journey from when we started.
Okay. But then, so for you, so that's at the point in time when you sourced these deals, almost acting as a buying agent. And, it was based on, your community and people you were working alongside.
Yeah.
But what was it about property as a whole? Like, what attracted you to property?
I will say this. I remember when I was working at McDonald's, and people don't know this. McDonald's, it's not really about the burgers. McDonald's is not a fast food restaurant as we see them. McDonald's own every property they're in. It's more of a real estate firm. And I was able to understand, if that's the secret of McDonald's, there's something attractive about properties. And growing up in Africa, like know me from Nigeria, it's understanding that even the illiterate in Nigeria, they probably didn't go to school, understand the economics of property ownership and investment. They build your normal, they probably can have a 2-story, and what you have is about 10, 20 rooms, and they generate an income. And understanding that from a young age and seeing that this is how these people grow so much wealth. Coming to the UK as a teenager, I was able to see wow, this is a fantastic opportunity for me if I'm able to learn on time. And part of my journey was walking through McDonald's and studying McDonald's and seeing that McDonald's wasn't really a fast food restaurant. And from moving to McDonald's, I'm moving to a funny sector that probably changed a lot for me. So I was opportune when I left McDonald's to go work. I was going to uni then, go work in a security firm in Knightsbridge. And working in that security firm, these guys were into a big real estate firm, capital firm. And I asked one of the CEOs and I said, what's the secret about what you guys do? And he said to me, he gave me a book that changed my life. It was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the secret of a lot.
I think this is like the fourth. Like, people are genuinely going to think this podcast is sponsored by Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I'm pretty sure this is the 4th episode in a row where that's been said.
I can tell you that if there's any book I give out to people I recommend, is that literally changed my mentality. I'm a firm believer in readers are leaders. That book opened my eyes to what I didn't understand about investment, ownership, property, and that was the beginning for me. And I just started looking through London and looking through the change, the gentrification of areas. I remember walking through Canary Wharf, was just even coming up then, and seeing how people were making billions from real estate.
Yeah.
And I started reading through, and that was the beginning for me of knowing this is where I need to be in. But I didn't know where to start from.
Okay, so what's it? So if I go back to you, you said we started at an early age.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that you could touch your house, your house, you touch your house, you see that, okay, it's an economy that you understand very early on, because you know how much people have to pay to live somewhere.
That's right.
And you can see it. So for that, it felt like a almost safer investment opportunity because you had an understanding. And then you moved from Nigeria to the UK. Where were you living when you first moved?
So
did you move to Peckham? No, you left us.
No way to Peckham. I used to come shop in Peckham.
Okay.
My church used to be in Peckham
Okay.
back in the days, but when I came to the UK, I used to live in Surrey Keys.
Okay.
That's a posh area in South London. So Surrey Keys is bad in Peckham.
I mean, it's on the border, but I understand. It's like
Big difference.
East Dulwich and West Dulwich.
Exactly. Surrey Keys is closer to Canary Wharf, so it's got a nice view of London. So yeah, so it was Surrey Keys. That was my first. That was where I stayed when I moved to London.
So, but if we take it back to starting in McDonald's, when you first got that job, like, were you happy to get the job? How did you feel? Because
I remember a call that came through. I will never forget the guy's name. It's called Sam. We used to call him Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam, because I worked at McDonald's on Old Kent Road, and Old Kent Road McDonald's was we had two set of different people, Jamaicans and Nigerians. Every Nigerian that come into the UK then in South London, that's an easy place to get a job. And for me, as soon as I got the call from Uncle Sam that Sam, come and start tomorrow, I was so glad because coming from Nigeria where I never had a job, there was no need for me to go work. I was supporting my mom in her business and all that. She had a good business she was doing. But for me, getting a job in McDonald's was a change for someone that's just come from Nigeria, and I could get, because I was with my aunties, my sisters, so it was a bit of that freedom that I can start to earn. I think the key thing for me was understanding that I could start to earn money. And from a young age, my mom was telling me about saving. And I know like I potentially can save a lot from my new job at McDonald's. So it was so exciting to see that when I went in for the interview and I was told, yeah, you've got a job, your pay is going to be £3. They started with £3.25 initially. It was increased to £3.50. They saw that Sammi was any Nigerian guy probably listen to me, you know, back in those days as a fresher, you want to work as hard as you can. I was working, doing 12 hours, 14 hours. So there was a lot of increase in my pay from £3.25 to getting up £5.50. And I was having a lot of overtime as well. So McDonald's for me was that stepping stone that made me realize like I could start to earn something for myself as a young person.
And I think for me, just random McDonald's story. So same background, majority of my family were born in Nigeria. So all my cousins were born there and came around the same, like 17, 18, 19. And you're right, the McDonald's was the job that you could get. But it was although you say £3.50 and people listening to that now might be like, that's crazy. But it was a good job to get.
That's
and
right.
the other side of it is the free food.
That's right.
Because you were that guy at the end of the shift when you were bringing back the bags of food for everybody. Like that kept house, like there was, I think, 4 or 5 of my cousins lived in this flat around the corner from me.
Okay.
And that was like when I'm staying with them, that was, you know what I mean? That was keeping us going.
I remember back in Oaken Road, I used to have more than 20 Nigerians coming to me do my shift. And all they were waiting for was McDonald's food. Even my nephew, my nieces, my cousins, every day you probably have a full bag of McDonald's meal you're taking home. Yeah. So you you look like a boss. Because McDonald's was luxury then. Like you probably can only, back in those days, you probably can only go to like Uncle Sam's and get like a pound meal. But McDonald's was really expensive to just go to other places. Yeah.
And I think just a few things that I kind of unpacked that I think people shouldn't kind of miss out on is the fact that you touched on working in McDonald's. You saw the opportunity. You spoke to people about the company, about the ownership. And then working when you worked in Canary Wharf at the firm, taking the opportunity that while you're getting paid, still learn as much as you can, because people often downplay the value of a 9 to 5 and a job. But if you can gain experience and get paid at the same time, you know, the trade-off to that is going to university, doing higher education where you're paying for somebody to teach you. So if you can enhance your skill set, get paid and get experience and network, there's so many opportunities to take in the time to do really well in a 9 to 5. And you spoke about McDonald's, about your pay increasing from £3.50 or £3.25 to £5 something, which, although it sounds minor in today's money, it's almost a 80% pay increase.
That's right. I was even going to say to you that I had an opportunity of becoming a manager because they saw the potential in me in McDonald's. But something important for most of the listeners here is something I would say mindset. A big word I say is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. My mindset then was McDonald's was a start for me. It was only a journey. It was not going to be the end for me because I knew that there's so much potential in me. When I was working on the green McDonald's, I wasn't seeing the buggers.
Was there any ever a time you had to overcome your own ego? Like, i.e., so coming from not having to work in Nigeria,
Yeah.
or the fact that maybe your friends are going out and, you know, you're still working. Was there ever a time where you felt like you had to overcome ego, or you don't think that was something that was, you know, you had to deal with?
That's why I said to you about the mindset. Mindset is key to whatever you're doing in life. Because if you look at the story, working at McDonald's, having to think about the ego, that would always be there. Because even at McDonald's, when I tell people about the amount of, I get calls every day. People call me the black monkey from Africa, the true stuff of me. You get, like, you know that, but you know that this is only part of my journey. I'm not going to be here forever. This is just going to help me to survive and get myself into where I need to go to. But looking at where I am today, I potentially can buy 5 McDonald's franchises. I potentially can employ loads of people into McDonald's to go work for me. But my mindset was not working at McDonald's. I saw McDonald's as part of my journey. As a stepping stone to where I was going to.
And I think that's something that people can take away from anybody's journey, and that a lot of the time when you hear yourself, and we're going to talk about some of the larger scale developments that you're looking at, sort of potentially, you know, tens of millions, and then we talk about McDonald's, there's a disconnect from how one leads to the other. But there's steps, and there's, you know, these small wins and things you learn along the way that are going to act as something that can propel you to achieve the next step.
Absolutely.
Or get to the next step. So you've done McDonald's, you've done your, what we would call, you've done your hard graft, yeah? You've paid your dues in McDonald's. You've then had a change of job role where you've got access to people, because of the role you're doing there, you've managed to have access and have conversations and start to understand something you already had a passion for in property, and understand it a little bit more. Your then first real vocation or dabble within property was an element of deal sourcing packaged with your faith group and with your faith, and basically identifying a need and being able to deliver that.
That's correct.
And you were able to encourage, what was it about you that you think, why did these people believe in you? Like, in terms of character traits that you would say, look, for someone that wants to not just get into property, but be a success in business, what character traits would you say are important?
I think one big thing is you have to be a firm believer in yourself. If you can't believe in yourself, no one is going to believe in you. I understood the power of me knowing I can do this. I've always said this, like, in different podcasts and different times I speak to people about myself. I so much, in the journey of my life, and privileged to have a good mom and good father that kind of raised us to understand the power of faith, that all things are possible to them that believe. Believe is one key thing. If you believe, you can have it. Even if it's not you've been a Christian, wherever faith you come from, the belief system helps you understand you can do whatever you want to do. So going into that part where it was more about the community, I saw there was a need, which is what I always say to people about, find a need. There's always different opportunity. I saw this opportunity of, these guys were struggling with buildings. The sort of people that were delivering buildings to them were probably my white counterpart. They didn't understand faith, and they only understood the language of finding buildings, like proper surveyor, estate agent, and developers, but without the understanding of what the need of these people were. And I was able to see that this is a need. And it was then I started saying that, guys, I can solve this. From one solution of turning different, like, warehouse, industrial building into place of worship. And they were like, this guy's got results. He knows what he's doing. Then the other problem was finance, which is a major problem within our community. I then started bringing banks into the faith group to lecture them on how they can connect to borrowing, how they can put their accounts together, what the faith group needs to do in terms of the finance. Because a lot of time what you'd have is the faith, a pastor, for example, an imam, for example, will say, I believe, God, that this money is going to come, which is fantastic, which we have that faith to believe that. But your white agent or seller doesn't want to hear that. He wants to see, what's the proof of funds? So I started educating them on how to put proof of funds together, savings together. And from there, when they started seeing the result, it was easy, like, Sam has got result. We need to go. I never had social media. I never had anything. It was more of the referrers. Our business have grown over years based on referrers. And from there, even all the buildings we started buying, because we were one of the first firms to start buying buildings from Her Majesty called Her Majesty. We bought over 10 buildings from Her Majesty based on our track record. And because they see that deliverable of how we kind of turn around those buildings within the community, it was something where every building they bring to the market, they bring it to us before it goes to the open market.
Yeah.
So it's more about you believing in yourself so others can believe in you.
Okay, so with that belief, you've then enabled yourself to deliver, and with delivering, you build up a reputation, track record, and credibility.
That's correct.
And credibility, a lot of the time, is, and that's why you really have to make sure you do what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
If you say you're going to buy, you should buy. If you say you're going to exchange by this date, you should do it, because although you may get that deal across the line, that deal is only a stepping stone to where you're trying to get to in the future.
That's correct.
So, messing up sometimes on one step can have a much greater impact than you think. And that's why it's not always just all about the money. A lot of the time, your reputation is worth way more than the money you were going to make from that one deal.
I say this, is the word you're saying, is integrity. It's integrity is more than, I do a lot of stuff within the Jewish community. And I know one of the biggest stuff within that community is your word. Your word becomes something that binds you. Within that community, we struggle with that, for people to understand that your word is important. That keeps you going from even a place of investors. Even when you're having challenges with investors, how do you speak to them? How do you make sure they understand what you're going through?
And it's that the idea of your word meaning a lot is, I think one of the reasons why that's so important is there will things that come up in business, in property, and anything, things will come up.
Yep.
But if people know that you are a man of integrity, a reliable man, and you turn around to me and say, we've got this deal, it's going to take an extra 2 months, but don't worry, Kaz, I'm going to sort it. That if I trust your word, we don't have to sit down to go over 5 meetings, to go over all the spreadsheets, everything else, because you've built that level of respect.
That's correct.
Sometimes the fact that we don't have to do that means we can both save money and move forward. And obviously you don't have to go and perform, but your word is effectively your personal credit history within your circle.
That's correct, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in understanding the power of word. Words are powerful. And this is stuff that we need for anyone trying to get into property, anyone that's on that journey, that keeps your reputation. If we try to make a bid on a building, for example, they know Rehoboth. They know the track record is there. If we can't, we just say, we're sorry, we can't do this deal because it doesn't stack up.
And that's you have to also be, I think, because property is so desirable, we want to do everything, whether it's our first sourcing deal, whether it's our first rent to rent, your first purchase. They're sometimes so difficult. There's so many barriers, and we can't pretend there's not barriers to entry, that people struggle to say no. But that thing of being able to say, you know what, I don't think this one's for me, is really important.
Brand new series with myself, Kaz from Property by Kazy, bringing together some of the best developers and development projects across the UK.
This is probably my favourite flat because of the challenges.
This property was purchased for approximately 980,000.
So we're now in the hallway of flat number 9.
We should be generating £4,250 per calendar month.
Yeah, we did a full rewire, full replumb, the boiler's over your shoulder, all the copper was gone.
We've got the flip deals, BRRR, ground up construction, new build houses, conversions, office to residential, you name it, we're gonna go and see it. So if you wanna see some of the best developments in the UK, subscribe right now.
So that was the kind of the process, some of the earlier years, the pre-CEO Sammi. But now let's bring us into the present when we're talking CEO Sammi. Obviously, I know what your drive is. I sometimes ask people what drives them. So I think a different question to ask you is, what's the favorite project you've completed thus far?
I think I've said it to you when you came to that further. We can do a lot, we can build, we can do different stuff. Dartford, the Legacy Centre, is probably would still be for now that favorite.
I think it's because it's so visual. Like it's so visual what it was before.
That's correct.
Sometimes when you do a conversion, or if you do a new build, it's great, it's a new build, but it was a car park before and you can't see the car park anymore in what you've built. But because you retain the cell doors, the brickwork, the industrial feel to the courthouse, and even the flow of the building,
that's right,
retains itself, I think I can see why.
And also the people seeing businesses thrive. I probably go to Dartford maybe once or twice a month. And when I meet business owners in Dartford, the joy of seeing what they've been able to create from that space, the joy of seeing people coming and moving to bigger spaces, the joy of seeing businesses thriving, the joy of seeing that they have opportunities to what they didn't have opportunities to before. It's that gives you fulfillment. That makes you proud. That is like a father seeing your son and daughter growing and seeing those businesses thriving, and they're telling you the success stories, and they're saying to you, over the last 9 months, we've been able to achieve this. Like every other time, every month I get a gift from one of the businesses in house just to say thank you that we've been here, we've had a great time. And for me, that's a joy, that's fulfilling, because every other building where I build, where we sell, where we develop, you don't even know the people there. It's just different because you're selling, you move on. But with this, you've created a legacy. You've created something that you can always feel, the community aspect of it. Now we've got even the Lions Club, the local authorities in our space, the relationship we're creating with community. So there's a lot to learn. And even from there, we've been able to even start, we just started our foundation. So it's really something that is different. So I see that project as a little baby. So that would be that one I'll probably still keep.
That's what, you have to keep that one.
Yeah, I'll keep
what's
that.
your legacy? You have to keep the legacy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your favorite project. Now I know you've got the project in Camden, Peckham, different areas. But in terms of your current pipeline, what are you working on thus far? Like, what do you have in planning? What do you have in construction? Give us some fun numbers.
If we look at a place like Camden, Camden is going to open in June. Camden is a unique opportunity because one of the things I say to most people that listen to me is I use the word space optimization. As a developer, one key thing is how you optimize your space, how you kind of see taking a space from what it was before.
So what was Camden before?
So Camden used to be a bed and breakfast and a pub. So what we've created from a bed and breakfast now is we've been able to turn the bed and breakfast into about 8 apart hotels, where these apart hotels are going to have on the ground floor, we have a lounge, we have a bar, we also have a podcast space. So I'll probably bring you to interview you in my podcast space.
No problem.
So we've got a podcast space. We also have an event center, which is within that community, there's no event space. So there's an event center. We also then have a cloud kitchen, which is, some people call it dark kitchen.
Dark kitchen,
so we have a dark kitchen in house. And a space that probably will be making about maybe £80,000, £100,000 per annum. Now we'll probably be making about £300,000 per annum. And if you look at the GDV, after buying for about 2.7, now we'll probably be making, on our valuation, we probably have equity of about £800,000 on the asset, going to over £1 million. So you can see that in terms of value. And what we're doing with Camden, Camden is going to be a community. We're going to be developing as a community center in the future, where we're going to have a tech hub, a community hub for creative people. But that's still the long-term play.
That's a long-term.
That's
Camden
long-term
is an
play.
area that you want to operate in.
We're going to
have a number of commercial units where you can effectively service different needs within a community.
That's correct. That's right.
Okay, that's
so that's
interesting.
Camden, which the numbers are fantastic. Like Camden the numbers are great.
Was that on purchase? Like, how, I guess for some people they would hear that and think, but did you think that through on purchase? Like, when you saw that building, did you say to yourself, do you know what, I'm gonna compartmentalize this building into the apart hotels, into the dark kitchen, into the event center, into the podcast center, or did that develop over time? So
what I tell people about real estate is you have to be creative. You can only, if you're not creative, you're not going to make money.
Or somebody's going to predetermine the money you can make.
That's correct. And what we have now with real estate is there's thousands of people doing the same thing. So you can't compete in a market where things are evolving and changing without you saying, how do I adapt to the need? And finding myself saying that this is what the trend is. I follow trend.
Yeah.
Like within the group, we have even my staff, my colleagues and all that. We follow trend to saying, what are the things that are going on now? If we're hearing stuff like HMO, for example, what can we do better if we're going into that sector? So for us, looking at that space, the first thing is, one important thing, buy cheap. I would never buy the value at the current value because I would always have to leave equity in the deal. So I never buy a building at the full value of the building because there's no equity. I would always see that at least it's about 25% equity in the deal. So when we're then putting more value into the building, that means I can probably make about 100% return on my value, because a lot of the stuff we do are commercial buildings, but people don't understand there's a lot of values in commercial building. So for example, Camden now, in terms of what I've said to you, the dark kitchen, the podcast space, the event space, the bar, just look at the numbers around that.
Do you know, sometimes people talk and I'm just mentally thinking about this deal that I was looking at this deal and I was like, it was just like, it was 2 flats and a house, and then it had, basically in the middle, it had this big commercial space, 2 floors, previously a warehouse. And I would have ended up with, you kind of do the flats, you do the house, and you basically get the commercial space in the middle, but no windows for free. And I was looking at it and I was like, what do I want commercial for? I don't do commercial. But sometimes it is the idea of having these conversations. And now I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I messed that one up. Because in hindsight, Dark Kitchen would have worked amazing. Their podcasts, recording studios would have all been great within that space. And it would have been a freebie, so unlimited return on investment.
That's right. And what I always say to people is the numbers. You might just look. I've got a project currently in Deptford where, on the ground floor, is going to be an event space where we're probably generating over £7,000 a month. It's a small space, but we've been creative enough to identify the needs in that community and kind of see that this would make sense. But a lot of time people don't see that. So even as I'm saying this now, for your listeners, if you find a commercial space, please DM me, message me. There's always a creative part of commercial space. And the fantastic return on yield in commercial space where people don't understand. Even for the ones that we normally rent out to the churches, people don't know this. Churches pay good money on commercial spaces because all they need they're just in the large auditorium space where today you're going to give me a building I'm going to be buying soon. It's just the kind of stuff people don't know. Like,
it's going to pay me.
So this is the kind of stuff people don't know, that the opportunities are there with these commercial spaces. So Camden is one of them. Then another good one is the one in Camberwell. Camberwell is also something that I probably say is it's a unique one because it was a car park that was empty. Nothing was been done there. But we're going to...
This one's fun. Go on, build it up. We're going to get how many? How many units do you think? 10? 20? How many units are we going for?
So with that building, it's gonna be 43 apartments.
Okay, now just 43.
So
just humble 43.
So that's another big one because saying a car park. So someone listening and saying, how do I get into property? There's a lot of opportunities. You find stuff that you don't even know. A car park that was empty, that was not being used for anything, we were then being able to be creative with that space and now getting planning where we're going to be building residential commercial space. Nice. So those are the kind of stuff that I tell people about being creative. Real estate is evolved around a lot. You just need to be smart. So that's Camberwell. Then we also have stuff in Peterborough. We're heavily focused in Peterborough. We're doing a lot of stuff because Peterborough is the 5th fastest growing economy in the UK. So we're heavily focused on Peterborough because there's a lot of stuff people don't know you can get for cheap. So we're doing a lot of stuff in Peterborough as well.
You're going to know now.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of stuff.
But that's the thing. You listen, and I personally, I don't know about you guys, I didn't know anything about Peterborough in terms of where it sits. Okay. But that's obviously the joy of taking time to actually listen and learn for free. And it could be something that you can research, and then maybe you're already a sourcer in Peterborough. Yep. Maybe you already operate there. Maybe the fact that you've got connections there means that you can now reach out to Sammi, and there may be like some mutual business that can be done.
That's correct. And what I tell people is, if you go to Peterborough, you can get stuff for £100,000. And Peterborough is about an hour to London. There's so much growth going on in Peterborough. Lloyds Bank, they're heavily invested in Peterborough. So a lot of people don't understand this. The kind of stuff we have now in our pipeline are commuter areas. Dartford is another part. Chatham, Dover, we've got a partnership with Dover we've just signed. We bought something in Dover. Also in Dartford, we have about 3 more sites which is acquired in Dartford, which there's going to be a mix of different stuff. So our pipeline is quite very, very...
You sound like a busy man. How are you keeping all this hair? Eh?
Like I said to you, one thing that is important is my faith God has helped us. And I have a wonderful team. You can't do this stuff without a team. I'm blessed to have amazing people that I'm working with, amazing partners, amazing colleagues that are doing amazing stuff. We're building the dream and the vision together. And not to forget that I've got an amazing wife as well, because the family are also there. So it's also important to just make sure that you can balance this stuff together. And and I've got amazing Kazy as well. And South Point.
Oh, you could definitely tell they were in the background just waving, saying, please save me, pick me. But don't worry, South Point, we pick you and we appreciate you. Because I know you felt underappreciated. All of this great content is brought to you by South Point Media, #1 videographers in the game. Are you happy now? They're over the moon.
It does great stuff.
But do you know what? He is an example of a lot of the stuff we've spoken about today. Somebody who's taken the time to find somebody who they want to work with or be like, or that's where they're aspiring to be. But they don't just see it day one. They actually take the time to grow and say, invest in themselves. Because when we first started recording, he was recording on a phone.
Wow.
And I said, look, come on, man. I said, that's not what you are. You're a videographer. You don't have a video camera.
Wow.
Came back to me like a couple of weeks later. I don't even know how he got my number. Like, here I am. I've got X, Y, or Z. We worked together. We did stuff. Took great feedback when I said, look, I don't really like this. I do like that. And he's just an example of what really genuinely, like what hard work and what effort does. Because now he's gone from recording on a phone to having a craft where, I can't even say, but like he's writing serious invoices for serious companies.
Wow.
And everybody that's using him is saying like, the work was great, amazing delivery, love what you did. And that's just, that's 2 years in. He didn't go to university and study videography. He didn't study editing, didn't study all this stuff. But a lot of it was taught by YouTube videos online, and maybe I'll go and pay to do an extra course alongside it.
And that's what I said about believing in yourself. Because it's done quite a number of stuff for me, and I know the kind of person he is. I know what it does. And that's what people listen now. It might not even be property. Find something that people can believe in you for. And when you have the opportunity, I'll tell people, like, people say to me, oh, come mentor me, come do this. I don't necessarily need to mentor you. Bring something you think can add value to me. And in exchange, you make money from it. Now you just said it. I know every other month, I know what will pay South Point Media.
Exactly. So you now use South Point Media off the strength of him coming to your site with me potentially like for a lower reduced fee.
Exactly.
But he came there, built a relationship, and now he's on your books. When you're talking about your team, he's now part of that team. So I think he's definitely like a good an example of what can be achieved.
And South Point is not, we're even talking property now, and this is why I love podcasts, because it's not just property.
It's not.
It's seeing the value you can bring to other people. And that's the value add, that when you do this, money comes in. Don't chase after money. Chase after the value. You said it was just enough fun. You could have told him off and that was the end of it. But you realized, no, I might do better.
And then also the response. The response wasn't, I'm not going to talk to this guy. He told me it was, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to come back and I'm going to prove myself. And that's the difference. And it's attitudes. And attitudes are, I think that kind of segues me in very well into my final question. And hopefully you've got a good answer. But loads of people always ask me, like, how can I get into property? I'm not that experienced. I'm early on in my journey. Like, as just a piece of advice, what would you say is a good go-to? If you want to get into property, how would you advise people start? Or what steps do you take early on?
If you've been listening to me in the last 45 minutes and seen what I've said, readers are leaders. There's so much secret in the world. And what you have today is, they're just in a book. Find good books. If you're speaking to someone like Property by Kazy or wherever, Property Investor, wherever, what were the books these people were able to read to make them successful? Some of them can even tell you, I can give you 10 books that probably can change your life. I never went to university to study property, but what I did was studying and reading. I still read a lot. And that's what I said to you about trend. I still see, what am I doing in that kitchen? I read about that kitchen. I had to buy a book on it. How did I go into co-working space? I read about this. So everything has to do with you understanding it. When you then read, you're in a position when you want to speak to someone that's already in the game to say, I read this, what do you think about this? What should I focus on? Then also understanding, finding a need. A lot of people say, oh, the property game is saturated. It's one big fundamental need of human being is shelter. You can never have you can never stop building. We've always, the only thing God has given to us as a people of man is land. And in land, there's a lot of opportunities. So you need to find your stuff, knowing this is going to be my focus. If I'm going to be doing HMO, let me find a unique way of what I'll be doing my HMO. If I'm going to be doing co-working space, let me find a unique way of what I'll be doing. If I'm going to be building like cars, I might never need to build like property by cars, but I can do similar stuff. What is it doing that I might do differently, that I might be able to change? Why not I always say this, and also try to find a mentor. The secret to most successful people over the years I've watched is the power of mentorship. If you're going to go into this stuff, find a mentor. Just don't find a mentor that you're going to be getting from. See that you can also add value to the person. See that you can see, what can I do for you? What is that thing? Imagine you saying to Kazy, can I come drive you for a month without paying you? He's going to be happy because him having to sit down and someone is driving him, he can do a lot with his time. But you can then imagine what you can be getting from driving Kazy, because you get into his inner, you get into Kazy's life. You literally know everything about Kazy by saying, I'm going to dedicate a month to you. I don't want the money. I'm just saying that. Kazy didn't tell me to say that, but...
No, I definitely didn't, but listen, I get a driver, you never know. But I think, to summarize everything you just said, I think you really hit the nail on the head there in terms of read, learn, absorb as much as possible. Even once you've learned, keep learning. You're never too smart.
That's right.
Like you said, with reading about the dark kitchens, you were already doing £1 million deals and you're still reading, still educating. Align yourself with people that, are that few steps ahead of you that you can learn from. And lastly, whatever you're doing, do well and identify a USP that sets you different, an opportunity that you can then exploit, because an opportunity is just something that you can turn into something like a unique market point that you can then exploit to be a success. Sammy, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
for joining me on today's podcast. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you like this video. If you're not subscribed already, you've got to subscribe. And lastly, those notifications, turn them on so you don't ever miss any amazing content like this. We'll be back next week with another episode. We are going to be with Alex from AA Drafting, the star of our current premises, architect. So any architectural questions you have, ask us in the comments and we'll come and see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me. Didn't tell me.
Read, learn, absorb as much as possible. Even once you've learned, keep learning. You're never too smart.
That's right.
Like you said, with reading about the dark kitchens, you were already doing £1 million deals and you're still reading, still educating. Align yourself with people that, are that few steps ahead of you that you can learn from. And lastly, whatever you're doing, do well and identify a USP that sets you different, an opportunity that you can then exploit, because an opportunity is just something that you can turn into something like a unique market point that you can then exploit to be a success. Sammy, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
for joining me on today's podcast. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you like this video. If you're not subscribed already, you've got to subscribe. And lastly, those notifications, turn them on so you don't ever miss any amazing content like this. We'll be back next week with another episode. We are going to be with Alex from AA Drafting, the star of our current premises, architect. So any architectural questions you have, ask us in the comments and we'll come and see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me.